I'm 6'9", 272 to be exact. I'm not hard to find. I don't want no trouble. But if something got to go down, I'm not playing fair. We got to get down there. We got to get down. I'm just telling you. Hey, look.
Hard dunks, soft touch, and one of the meanest play styles you'll ever see make Karl Malone one of the most bellowed players in Utah Jazz history. Malone fought for every basket and collected many grudges along the way. Today, we look at 5 players Karl Malone hated the most. We're starting with his biggest rival, Michael Jordan. Utah's window opened in 1997 and 1998, and both seasons ended with Chicago celebrating. The Bulls beat the Jazz in 6 games in 1997, then 6 games in 1998, with Jordan taking Finals MVP both times. The stage was the biggest possible, and every possession carried weight. Game 1 of the 1997 series set the tone. Tie game, under 10 seconds, Karl Malone at the line. He chokes and misses both free throws, due to reasons we'll discuss later. Jordan hit the winner on the next trip. One sequence defined the early edge and told Utah exactly how thin the margin would be. Jordan then produced the signature performance of that series in Game 5. Sick and dehydrated, he played 44 minutes and scored 38, including the go-ahead 3 in the final half minute. Chicago left Salt Lake City up 3-2 and closed the title at home. For Utah, that night turned a race into a chase. There was no cushion left.
What's the biggest motivating factor going into that series for you?
Karl Malone get MVP.
Context sharpened the sting. Weeks earlier, voters had given the 1997 regular season MVP to Malone. Utah's rise and Malone's production earned it. The gap between them was small enough that the award hovered over every big moment in June. When the finals ended, the scoreboard read Bulls in 6, and Jordan with another Finals MVP. The split between the league award and the series award became part of the story. Across both finals, the numbers explain why Utah never fully solved him. In 1997, Jordan averaged more than 32 points with strong rebounding and playmaking. In 1998, he averaged more than 33 and finished with 45 in the clincher. Those totals were not empty. They arrived in late-game isolations, with footwork that created clean looks, and with decisions that closed quarters. The 1998 finish is the image everyone knows. Utah led 86-85 with 18.9 seconds left in Game 6 and tried to feed Malone on the left block. Jordan left his man, slipped behind Malone, and stripped the ball clean. He dribbled into the front court, rose on the right elbow, and buried the pull-up over Brian Russell. One defensive read and one shot ended the series and capped the Bulls' run. Chicago's plan for Malone added to the pressure. The Bulls fronted the post, flooded entry angles, and sent quick digs the instant Malone put the ball on the floor. Dennis Rodman leaned on him, but help made the difference, turning power finishes into touch decisions. Late in games, Utah saw bodies on the catch and hands on the ball. That strategy mattered only because Jordan's side of the ledger held. In those 2 finals, 3 Chicago wins came by 4 points or fewer. A handful of plays decided. Months of work. The first night free throws stayed in the air for the rest of the 1997 series. After that moment, Malone's trips to the line carried a different weight. Utah still pushed Chicago to 6, but every late attempt felt heavier. In a matchup that tight, confidence at the stripe became part of the scoreboard.
I'm not saying he wasn't deserving of it. All I'm saying is that fueled the fire.
There was respect inside the hostility. Jordan praised Malone's power and consistency and acknowledged that Rodman could not bully him for long stretches. Utah answered with physical defense, hard screens, and a willingness to push pace through John Stockton whenever the Bulls missed. Nothing about those games was soft. Cuts were contested, rebounding was a fistfight, and second chances were rare. If you are asking whether Malone hated Jordan, the record shows competition more clearly than it shows sound bites. The finals gave Malone his 2 best shots at a ring. Jordan took both. The missed free throws in 1997 and the strip into the jumper in 1998 remain the 2 pictures Jazz fans see when they revisit that era. You do not need a direct admission to understand how it felt. Twice, at the highest stakes, the same opponent closed the door. That is enough to fuel a rivalry for a lifetime. Let's talk about another heated rival of Malone's. The round mound of rebound, Charles Barkley.
But anytime me and Karl played against each other, We both thought we were the best power forward.
Malone and Barkley were built for collisions. Same position, same timeline, same hardware chase. Their teams kept running into each other from the late 1980s through the end of the decade, first with Barkley in Philadelphia, then with Phoenix, and finally with Houston. Across 49 head-to-head games, Malone's side finished 29-20, including a narrow edge in the playoffs. Numbers never tell the whole story here, but they explain why the respect always came with friction. The 1997 Western Conference Finals captured the rivalry at full volume. Houston had reshaped around Hakeem Olajuwon, Clyde Drexler, and Barkley. Utah had its best roster, its best record, and home court. The series swung back and forth until Game 6 in Houston, when the last play turned into a signature moment in Jazz history. With seconds left and the score tied, Brian Russell inbounded to John Stockton. Malone set the screen that forced the switch, and Stockton rose over a late contest to bury the three at the horn. Barkley stood near the arc as the shot dropped, and Utah advanced to its first NBA Finals. Barkley got another crack at Malone the next spring, this time in the first round. Houston stunned Utah in Game 1 at the Delta Center and then held serve at home to take a 2-1 lead. Game 4 turned on a body blow nobody planned. An Antoine Carr elbow caught Barkley's right arm and tore his triceps. He tried to return, but the injury ended his postseason. Utah took the series in 5 and rolled on. If you want the single moment that deflated Houston's belief it could upset the 1 seed, it was that injury. Before Houston, there was Phoenix, and those years layered more context onto the rivalry. Barkley arrived in 1993, won MVP, carried the Suns to 62 wins, and pushed them to the finals against Jordan. The Suns didn't draw Utah that spring, but the West was reshaped by Barkley's presence, and every regular season meeting with Malone became a referendum on who owned the position. Phoenix's rise kept pressure on Utah to sharpen the Stockton-Malone machine and added urgency to each matchup.
You know, people talk about your friends. Listen, when you play your friend, you want to beat your friends more than anybody.
Style fed the tension. Barkley attacked off the bounce, won the low man battle, and initiated contact to control the glass. Malone preferred deep seals, quick middle turn finishes, and a punishing diet of free throws off the pick and roll. Neither gave ground. The scouting reports reflected it. Utah fronted less against Barkley and relied on strong side digs. Houston used length and swarming help to bother Malone's catches when Barkley was on the floor. The physicality matched the reputations both built. When media and opponents labeled Malone dirty in the 1990s, it wasn't a mystery why Barkley, one of the league's most outspoken stars, was always in the middle of the replies. There was also a scoreboard truth Barkley couldn't ignore. Malone's Jazz eliminated Barkley's Rockets on the night Stockton beat the buzzer in 1997, a play Barkley still gets asked about decades later. The next year, Houston flirted with a first-round upset before the triceps tear removed Barkley from the series and tipped the balance back to Utah. Each time the stakes rose, Malone's side moved on. That built a residue that shows up in how fans remember their exchanges. Head-to-head data backs the eye test. Malone averaged roughly 24 points and 10 rebounds across his meetings with Barkley and held the overall win edge. That doesn't diminish Barkley's highs. He had nights where he dominated the glass and controlled tempo, especially in Phoenix. But the long view favored Malone, and the key moments in 1997 and 1998 favored Utah. In rivalries like this one, those are the details that stick. The twist is that they were teammates on the greatest team ever assembled. Both made the 1992 U.S. Olympic roster and won gold together. 4 years later, they did it again in Atlanta. Even inside that shared jersey, the contrast stayed vivid. Barkley led Team USA in scoring in 1992, while Malone led in rebounding. Both were central pieces of a group that flattened the field. They didn't have to love each other to make it work. They had to respect the mission, which they did. Strip away the cameras and the talk shows, and the rivalry reads cleanly. Two Hall of Fame power forwards kept finding each other at inflection points. They traded elbows, shoves, and leads. One hit the West Finals winner while the other watched. One tore a triceps in a near upset and had to sit down. They shared summers chasing gold and winters fighting for home court. If you're, Ranking Malone's most heated adversaries, Barkley belongs near the top because the games say so, the stakes say so, and the outcomes, again and again, say so. But you know who Karl Malone hated even more than Barkley? Another Chicago Bulls legend, Scottie Pippen.
I just walked by him and said, the mailman don't deliver on Sunday.
Pippen was the pressure valve the Bulls used to squeeze Utah's offense. He was long, quick, and relentless, and he understood how to bother the first action and blow up the second. Against the Jazz, that meant disrupting entry angles to Malone, sliding into the post on the catch, and turning simple reads into crowds. He did not need to guard Malone every trip to shape the matchup. He guarded the pass, the timing, and the space. The tone went public on the first night of the 1997 finals. Tie game, seconds left, Malone at the line. Pippen walked by and reminded him that Sunday deliveries are off. Malone missed both, and the Bulls stole game 1. That crack lived rent-free for the rest of the series. From then on, every late free throw felt heavier, and Pippen knew it. Psychological warfare was part of his toolbox.
To this day, I think that's the greatest line in basketball.
Chicago weaponized Pippen's mobility in ways that targeted Malone's rhythm. Utah loved to feed the block out of the Stockton to Malone action, with weak side screens freeing a shooter if help arrived. Pippen short-circuited it by showing help early, bluffing and retreating to the passing lane. On the next trip, he would dart down to swipe at the dribble and still recover to contest a corner 3. Those flashes and recoveries made Malone catch, think, and bounce, which is exactly what the Bulls wanted. The 1998 finals showed the same script in bolder ink. Game 3 in Chicago became a defensive clinic, the 96-54 bludgeoning that still stands as a finals low for points. Pippen's fingerprints were everywhere. He met ball handlers full court, funneled them into help, and then pinched down to the post on dives. Utah's timing collapsed. Malone's catches came a foot or two farther out, and the drives fed shot clocks instead of shots. The numbers from that night read like a museum piece, and Pippen's floor game is the guide. When Pippen did take Malone more directly, it was about leverage and hands. He sat on the top shoulder, forced the spin into help, and raked at the ball when Malone turned middle. The Bulls trusted Dennis Rodman to wrestle, but Pippen's length punished the second move. A clean power finish became a dribble, then a dig, then a kick-out to a shooter who now had a hand in his face. For a team that lived on precision, those extra beats were poison. The subplot of 1997 sharpened everything. Malone had edged Jordan for the regular season award, and that decision draped over June. Pippen played with that context in mind. If Utah's best path to a title ran through Malone, then choking the lanes and nagging the catch was the mission. His steal and runouts punished every lazy pass. His early traps forced the ball out of Stockton's hands before the Jazz could get to their favorite angles. He turned a half-court puzzle into a track meet. Game 6 in 1998 added another layer. Pippen's back seized on an early dunk. He kept coming in and out, a decoy more than a hub, which raised the defensive strain on everyone else. Even then, his early full-court pressure set a baseline. Utah never found a steady gear, and the final 2 possessions told the broader story. Jordan knifed behind Malone for the strip, then buried the pull-up over Brian Russell. Those moments sit on Jordan's reel, but the months of groundwork that made them possible look a lot like Pippen's habits. There was constant chirping, hard screens, and a willingness to foul rather than give up rhythm. Pippen's style fed the temperature of the series. He bumped cutters, denied reversals, and took the air out of Utah's late-game sets. Malone responded with elbows, seals, and strikes to the rim, and the collisions left marks. Nobody walked away confused about how much was at stake. There is no tidy sentence where Malone spells out his feelings about Pippen. The scoreboard is the statement. 2 Junes ended with Utah 1 step short, and Pippen in the middle of the schemes that pushed them there. He bothered the entry pass that feeds the franchise player. He wielded timing like a weapon. He talked at the right moment and made it stick. If Malone carried grudges from those years, the face attached to many of them wore number 33. Malone also had beef with his own teammates. Let's talk about his feud with Kobe Bryant.
How about Kobe? Y'all cool?
Absolutely.
Y'all had a little issue back then.
We had a little issue.
The partnership started with big plans. In the summer of 2003, Malone took a pay cut to join the Lakers and chase a title alongside Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, and Gary Payton. He opened well, then lost months to a knee injury, returned for the playoffs, and played through pain in a finals loss to Detroit. Expectations turned into frustration inside a tense season. At first, Bryant cast Malone in a mentor role. He called him an older brother figure and said he valued Malone's voice. That image shattered a few months into the 2005 campaign when Bryant went public with a personal complaint. During a November 23rd game at Staples Center, he said Malone made inappropriate remarks to Vanessa Bryant. The story hit the wires in mid-December and immediately ended any hope of a reunion. Details of the exchange spilled out quickly. Bryant's agent, Rob Pelinka, said Malone approached Vanessa courtside and made several inappropriate comments. When Bryant confronted Malone by phone after the game, Pelinka said Malone didn't deny the remarks. Malone's agent, Dwight Manley, offered his version, saying Vanessa twice asked Malone, who was wearing a cowboy hat and boots, "Hey cowboy, what are you hunting?" And that Malone replied, "I'm hunting for little Mexican girls." The phrasing lit a fuse that never burned out. The fallout was immediate and public. Bryant told reporters he would not play with Malone again. Within days, Malone signaled he would not return to the Lakers, saying bluntly that Bryant didn't want him there and it's his team. Whatever remained of the super team idea died right there, not on the court, but in a war of words that spilled from the locker room into columns and nightly TV hits. Malone later apologized for the remarks through intermediaries while disputing the intent. Media and fans kept replaying the line, and the story followed both men for years. A decade later, Malone leaned into his tough guy persona on camera and said if Bryant was still angry, they could settle it. Comments that only resurfaced the original incident for a new cycle. No one close to the 2004 Lakers forgot how quickly a title pursuit turned into a soap opera.
Do you feel tension when you see him?
I don't feel tension.
On the floor, their single season together showed flashes of what might have been. Before the injury, Malone's quick reads in the triangle eased pressure on Bryant's shot creation and stabilized second units. In the finals, Malone's aggravated knee limited him to spot minutes as the Pistons smothered Los Angeles in 5 games. Years later, Bryant said the series outcome wouldn't have changed even with a fully healthy Malone, a tidy bow on a basketball chapter overshadowed by everything that came after. The episode also fit Malone's public image. He had a long reputation for blunt talk and for staring down anyone who crossed him, teammate or opponent. That edge helped define him in Utah and traveled with him to Los Angeles. With Bryant, the clash wasn't tactical or about touches. It lived in a single night's comments and the hard line each man drew afterward. Once trust was gone, there was nothing to fix. In the end, the feud with Bryant belongs on any list of Malone's deepest grudges because it broke from the usual pattern. Jordan, Barkley, and Houston were playoff antagonists. This one lived inside his own locker room. It started with a cowboy hat, a bad line, and a phone call. It ended a partnership and stained a season that was supposed to be a parade. For Malone, who prided himself on durability and discipline, that kind of exit left a mark that never faded. Let's finish things off by talking about Malone's lack of love for Hakeem Olajuwon. The hostility grew from constant, high-leverage collisions. Houston beat Utah 4-1 in the 1994 West Finals on the way to the title, with Olajuwon controlling the series. The Rockets then knocked the Jazz out again in 1995, winning a 5-game first round on their repeat run. Utah finally flipped it in 1997. The Rockets, now with Hakeem, Barkley, and Drexler, pushed the West Finals to 6 before John Stockton buried the buzzer beater over a late contest. That shot sent the Jazz to their first finals and froze Houston on its own floor. The series result and the moment became part of Malone's story. Every chapter was bruising. The Jazz tried to bury Olajuwon on the block with deep seals for Malone. Houston countered by fronting, sending quick help on the bounce and making Malone finish through Hakeem's hands. On the other end, Olajuwon's footwork forced fouls and rotations that wore out Utah's bigs. Box scores from that 1997 set read like a grind, with both stars carrying heavy loads and games decided in the final minutes. Reputation kept the temperature high. Olajuwon blasted Utah during the 1997 series as a dirty team that used elbows and illegal picks. He named Malone and Stockton in that criticism. The label matched how opponents and media often framed Utah's physicality and how Houston fans saw those matchups. The anger felt earned because the whistles rarely cooled the contact. The record between the two pillars is nearly even, which explains why the frustration lingered. Across playoff meetings, Malone's teams went 10 for 11 against Olajuwon's. In a rivalry this tight, the memories that stick are specific. Hakeem punishing single coverage in 1994, the Rockets escaping in 1995, Stockton's winner in 1997, with Malone's screen freeing the shot. Those snapshots tell you what words do not. There is no tidy line where Malone declares hatred for Olajuwon. The scoreboard, the elbows, and the quotes from 1997 cover the point. Houston blocked Utah's path twice at its peak. Utah returned the favor in 1997 on the biggest Western stage. That mix of pain and payback defined how Malone felt when he saw Hakeem across from him in May. Karl Malone's grudges were earned in June, not January. If you want more deep dives into rivalries, subscribe and drop your picks for the next player to cover. Your comments shape our channel. Thanks for watching.